Hi, everybody. Imagine if everybody had a seat at the table. What would that look like in our world? I was told if I was going to give a TED Talk, I should always start with my origin story. And I'm a huge fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so I like origin stories. I think they're very important. So my origin story started in a little town 60 miles north of Seattle where I was put into the foster care system. I am listed as white on my birth certificate. Clearly, I am melanin enhanced. I am not white. And so at 7 months, my melanin came in, and my biological grandmother gave my biological mother the choice of giving me up for adoption or disinheriting and disowning her. And all of us have a need to belong in our families. And so my biological mother made the choice to put me into the foster care system. So this is me at age 2.5 when I'd already been in 3 homes. This is the week that I went to live with the family that ultimately became my permanent family, although they didn't get to adopt me until I was 18. So they're an Irish and German family, and that's kind of what we look like. I'm down on the little lower corner. My brother Greg, my mom and dad, who were Irish and German. So I grew up as the only black person in a town of 2,000 people, 60 miles north of Seattle. When I got ready to go to school, and this is what I looked like as a kindergartner, the entire town came out to try and keep me from going to the elementary school because they thought that somebody black in their school would ruin their school district. By the time I was 13, which is the age I am in this picture, I'm the baby of 8. All the rest of my siblings are Irish and German. I was voted best dancer, and the school came out and got very angry, and they started a race riot, and I was the only person of color. So they chanted, "Kill the N," and they locked arms, and I was sent home for a month for my own protection at the end of 8th grade. By the time I was 16, I had attempted suicide 4 times, and I left home at the age of 16 because I was told I would never be anything or create anything with my life. And when I left home at 16 with $5 in my pocket, I decided that nobody should ever feel unwelcome the way I felt unwelcome. That nobody should ever feel as though they did not belong and did not have a place. This led me to my life's work, this pledge that if somebody came to my door and knocked on my door, I would feed them dinner. How many of you have ever been to a Target store? How many of you spent more money there than you planned to spend at the Target store? Well, that's called experience engineering. Target and other retailers, by the way, they're not the only ones who do it. If you've ever been at the checkout counter and you saw, "Buy this for $4.99, and you put 6 of them in your, because $4.99 is so much less than $5. There's actually a granddaddy of experience engineering. Anybody want to make a guess? Disneyland. They put pots of vanilla behind trees to make you stay longer and to spend more money. So I wondered, as a person that was often the only person of color in an all-white room, was there a way to make people literally pluck from our brains the way retailers, by the way, retailers make us move through retail spaces, and they make us excited. Like this red dot right here reminds me of my favorite bath mat from Target that I wasn't planning to buy, but I love so much. And I dance on it. So I feel very happy about this red dot. But retailers extract wealth from you and make you excited to do it. I wondered, could you extract people's preconceived notion of the other? And we didn't have to do it permanently. We just had to suppress fight, flight, and freeze for long enough to make people want to come together across difference. Meet Izzy, intentional social interaction. Izzy is an engineered experience It is a feast appropriate from vegan to carnivore. At our table, the demographics are actually fairly important. Normally, at least 51% are people of color or immigrant or those who are normally marginalized. 33% of them are under the age of 24. We have now had more than 50,000 people to tables, Izzies, as we call them. By the way, if you notice it was I-Z-I, it's because when we said we did Izzies, I-S-I-S, people said, you're hosting ISIS. And we couldn't get them off of it, and we always said it is Izzy anyway. So that's why, so we now say we engage in intentional social interaction. That's what we do at the table. So now we have taught 2,900 people how to do this model of intentional social interaction. We have welcomed 50,000 people across the state. The first 14,000 actually came to my home for dinner, but not all at the same time. I only have one bathroom. And some extraordinary things happened. Remember I said I didn't feel like I belonged? Well, nobody funded our work in the early days. And so we had an opportunity to hear what people thought about Izzy and being welcome to an abundant feast across difference. The 16-year-old girl who came up and said, my father's in prison and my mother's a recovering crack addict. And today was the very first time I wasn't treated as a challenge to solve or a problem to manage. It was the 65-year-old white man in Owatonna who said, my family and friends have moved away, and I had no idea all these wonderful immigrants who lived in my community. Today I made friends. I belong again. My friends and family had moved away, and I have lunch. And yeah, I didn't know I was gonna have lunch with South Sudanese and Somali people, but it turns out we have tons in common. More than 6,000 people. Now, this is actually, I don't know if you ever respond. I get exhausted. People are constantly asking me to respond to, did you like this experience? Did you care about it? So we actually do no follow-up. People have to come to us and tell us what they think about Izzy. More than 38% of all people who attend 1 3-hour Izzy, which is how long they last, and they have touch points, and no name tags are allowed. We say there's orchestrated chaos. We give an element of choice. It's just like retailers use to move you through a space. We move you through a space across difference. We say we mix the comfortable with the uncomfortable. We're used to hospitality, but not necessarily with people who are different than us. But one question I have for all of you. How many of you who have been in a relationship with a sibling or maybe a lover or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a good friend, how effective is it to tell your friends or your family constantly all the things that they do wrong? How they're failing you? Think about how we go around talking about people across difference most of the time. We talk about how they fail us, what they're doing wrong, what they're not getting right. I know how that would work with my husband. It wouldn't. So why do we do this when we're coming together across difference? That's why Izzy was needed. So now more than 6,000 people have come back to tell us they are now welcoming the other into their own home when they didn't before. They understand and find it easier to talk about difference. I happen to be Jewish, so the news of yesterday, and my mother-in-law lives in Pittsburgh and is a Jewish person in Pittsburgh, a mile where the shooting happened. And it was really hard to be here yesterday and today. I want to be with my mother-in-law. So this isn't just an idle thing, oh, we're doing this to be warm and fuzzy. Lives depend on this. Coming together across difference to find common ground. More than 2,099 people have come back and say they're now collaborating with somebody they met in a room. That could be the Department of Health is now working with Samba Fall, this amazing African drummer who does African healing drums that helps people who have been victims of genocide. Imagine what that means for the Department of Health to have accurate information to serve populations. So not only does it make people feel as though they're welcome, it creates new pathways for more affordable programs. More than 2,800 people have come back, and this is really funny, this number, We started doing these things called sticky stats at our Izzy's because it turned out that when we went all over the state, we looked at lowering barriers to accessing higher education for immigrants. And all over the state, people thought that people who were refugees or asylum seekers or anybody on public assistance got free cars. It was a ubiquitous belief. Granite Falls to Duluth, it didn't matter where we were. So 2,800 people have said, I learned something I didn't know. I didn't know that the Somalis in St. Cloud were here because they helped the United States government. Had no idea, didn't know that about the system of immigration. Didn't know that. So we're constantly pushing people to know and to be grounded in reality and facts. This is one of my favorite numbers. More than 2,600 people of color have gotten a job from one 3-hour table. We have better numbers in our last 13 years than most organizations have in 10 years or 15 years. We normally place more people of color in jobs. And 4,700 have come back to say they were just transformed by the experience. Why does this all matter to you? Well, belonging, it turns out, isn't just something we should kind of pay attention to. Scientists out of Harvard, Stanford, and UCLA have been looking at the brain under lights, and it turns out, under lights, scanners, like MRIs, things like that. Action, Hollywood. And what they've been discovering is that the part of the brain that lights up when you feel rejected or you feel as though you do not belong. How many of you is it important for you to belong? Raise your hands. Well, that's universal. How many of you have said, I wish we could just get everybody to the table to solve this problem? Raise your hands. How many of you have somebody in your own family across race, class, color, or other means of self-identity? Raise your hand. So if you look around, hold your hands up again. Look around at how many people have somebody in their own family across difference. There is no them. There is only us. And right now, we're at a crisis point in our country of people not getting along. So our goal here is to change the narrative. Because if the part of our brain that lights up when we are rejected or do not feel welcome lights up for everybody the same way, and it lights up like a physical pain, it means that a lot of us are in pain right now. A lot of us aren't feeling welcome. A lot of us need to come together and heal together. We actually bought the license to this picture. This was from Charlottesville last August at the white supremacist rally. And we think that when given the choice between this party and this party, this was the 38th Street Bridge over the 35W on August 16th of this year. Many of you may not know, but when they put the freeways in, they intentionally separated white neighborhoods from black neighborhoods. The Minnesota Department of Transportation allowed us to close the bridge for one night after it was repaired. And which do you think you prefer? Do you want to be at this party? How many of you would rather be at this party? Okay? So this is what we're talking about. This is what our communities already are looking like. This kind of diversity, this kind of age diversity, this kind of ethnic diversity. Imagine if everybody had a seat at the table. Imagine if everybody had a seat at the table on your bridge right here. The bridge, I got to go by it, it's on Century Avenue, right? Going into your college right here. Imagine next spring hosting an intentional social interaction to welcome members of your own community to Izzy. You have a perfect place. Imagine what we could do together if everybody had a seat at the table. Thank you.